What was your full name?
Full name was Ronald Francis Rodaer. I was born September 1932.
What was your life like as a kid?
Things were pretty rough. We were during the tail end of the Depression. Nobody had much money. I still remember, really can remember, one guy came and gave me a great big orange. I never seen an orange that big. Man, that made my day. But things were, nobody had much money. You didn't go no place. You stayed home, and that was about it. I mean, it was really rough.
Have any brothers or sisters?
I got 3 sisters and 1 brother.
How many kids do you have?
We got 3. One was our own. We adopted 2.
Can you explain what it was like when your children were growing up?
Well, that was altogether different. We had very little toys, and they had quite a bit. You know, the youth kids now got quite a bit of toys, and they went quite a bit. We more or less stayed home because Pa had no money to spend on gas, and nobody had any money really. So we really entertained ourselves. But nowadays you got TV, you got cell phones, you got computers, and we never had anything in that. And we listen to the radio, and our kids watch TV. And we had certain programs I like to watch on the radio. I remember one was Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and somehow I was enthused by Hawaiian music. So every weekend, Saturday, there was a show direct from Hawaiian music, and I listened to that. But they had the TV, they had all this other, you know what you kids got now, they got all that stuff there.
How have things around your house changed?
A lot more people. We had hardly any people. When I grew up, there was a house here, and most of the area was all farms. There were about 80-acre farms, and that took up, most of the people were farmers. And some worked in the quarries. You might see these big quarries over by Valpapino. A lot of people worked in them. My grandfather worked in them. He was a stone cutter. We had no big grocery stores like we have now. All we had was this grocery store in front of a person's house, so you could get all your essentials. But the meat market, we had no meat. They didn't sell much meat outside of bologna and wieners. We had to go into Green Bay to a meat market and buy our meats. We raised most of everything. We had big gardens. Everybody had a garden for potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, you know, all the food you eat. We raised that all ourselves. We didn't go to the store and buy much of anything.
How has the Howard area changed?
Population. Roads are better. Before it had a big snowstorm, we never got plowed out. We were lucky. We were on Valpavilo we lived, so our county shop was just up the road. The trucks would go by. We never had too many snow plows either, but some people, farmers lived out in the country, they didn't get plowed out for days. They get their milk picked up. Most of the milk picker up there had, those that pick up the milk, they had plows on their trucks, or they had farmers that load them in sleds and bring them down to the nearest pickup point where they could get their milk. We had, everything is modern. We had nothing that was modern. Everything, a lot of them outside bathtub, outside toilets. They had to go out there in the wintertime, and now they all got flush toilets inside. We had electricity. That's about most of the modern conveniences we had was electricity.
What is your heritage?
On my dad's side, his mother, both of them were Germans. They came from Mecklenburg, Germany. It's way on top northern part of Germany. On my dad's side, my grandfather was Belgian. He was a Flemish Belgian. There's 2 types of Belgians, Flemish and Walloons. And the difference was the language. The Flemish spoke Dutch and part German, and Walloons spoke French. And the Flemish all settled up in Howard, and the Walloons settled on the east side of town. So we had a settlement up there we used to call it a Flemish settlement. It was all the farmers were all Belgian. And most of them all came from the same area in Belgium. They came over about 1848 on a steamer. And my mother's side, she came from the pier, and they were Dutch. I still remember Grandpa wearing all wooden shoes.
Can you explain why your ancestors left for America?
Famine was the main reason. And those, the Flemish, ever heard of the Napoleon Wars, Waterloo? They were fought almost on his doorsteps. And between the wars and the famine.
What kind of house did you live in?
The house was my grandfather's house. It was, we rented rooms to the people that worked at the quarry. There's all little rooms like you see in a motel upstairs. And when my mother and daddy got married, they blocked part of it off, and we lived on that side of the house upstairs. It was a pretty good sized house compared to what everybody else had. Most of them just had a little, you probably would call them shacks now or something. There wasn't very much. And Grandpa, it used to be a lot of men used to eat there. But at one time, we had no basement. We were digging a basement. I think the men were working for their meals. We had a lot of men working. Grandma used to feed them lunch and have supper time. And the rooms were real big, except upstairs. But downstairs, she had, probably like you kids got now, big rooms.
What did your parents do for work?
Well, they also owned a gas station. Here's a picture of the early gas station.
Colin, what does it say?
Goodyear tires.
Goodyear
I
tires.
want to pass it around, they all can see it. He went out of business. And that was about what, and my dad drove truck. They had a gas road to the farmers. He drove gas truck. In the early years, he worked at the public service. He also had a tavern there. He also ran a tavern.